Joy,
Great minds.
listen, before we even jump into the conversation, you in my closet.
Yeah.
So this wasn't intentional, but I'm loving what I'm seeing right now.
Great taste. Yes.
Yes, definitely. I'm excited for today's conversation. I'm really just focusing on Black History Month, Black History Month, Black Futures Month. So I was really just talking about all the things and the work that we do in the centering the experiences of Black girls. How are you feeling today?
I'm well. I love February. I love the intentional focus of the month.
Yes.
It just gives me something to look forward to in conversation and really reflecting on the reason and the purpose for the way we do the work and the intentionality behind the work.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just jump into it with my introduction for folks that are new to this space or new to the work that we do and the conversations that we usually have in the work. My name is Kanesha Lenore Jean Baptiste. I am a proud first generation Haitian American. My pronouns are she, her. I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is the ancestral Paiute land. I serve as a training and capacity building manager with Youth Collaboratory, serving in our liberation focus area where we center our anti-human trafficking work, which houses the work that we do with centering the experiences of minor survivors and victims of human trafficking. My experience ranged from combating sex trafficking to advocating for housing justice for youth that are displaced and without housing, to building community through equitable and transformational services. Although I'm based and born in Las Vegas, Nevada, I am rooted from the beautiful island of Haiti with my bloodline tracing back to Western Africa. I'm a fierce advocate building networks of resilience throughout the diaspora and centering the experiences of Black women and girls impacted from historic and present day oppression. I'm the granddaughter to Pote Jean-Paul, who is a 5 foot fierce Black Haitian woman who has taught me that no does not have to be the answer and to fight for what I believe in. I'm the daughter of Sheman, who has taught me what meditation and prayer can take me. And I am the mother to Tori, who is the future and a revolutionary himself. My people are from the continent of Africa. They are non-continental Africans. They are Caribbean. They are revolutionary. My people are loud. They dance to compa. They love hip hop. They sing for no reason. My people are anywhere melanated people gather in the fight towards liberation. And my people are India Irie fans. So I'm just excited to be in this space with you all today and just to give you guys a little bit more insight to the work that I do and why I do it. And I'm now going to pass it over to you, Joy. Let us learn a little bit about you.
Thank you so much, Lenore. First of all, I am so thrilled to be counted in the number of your community because shout out to India Irie.
Yes.
My name is Joy. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as a cisgendered and able-bodied Virgo woman living in Oakland, California, the ancestral lands of the Ohlone people. I currently serve as the director of programs for the Building Community and Liberation Focus Areas at Youth Collaboratory. And through that work, I'm able to lead strategy and visioning for preventing and addressing human trafficking, enhancing mentoring practices for programs spanning about 40 states and ending homelessness specifically for Black and LGBTQ+ youth. I'm deeply passionate about ending exploitation and trafficking, but also about confronting the systemic inequities that contribute to the disproportionate impact of trafficking, specifically on Black girls, and co-creating communities that are culturally responsive. I'm the daughter of Mildred. I'm the granddaughter of Miss Addie Lou Boyd. And my people are Southern, my people are West African, and my people are creatives. I bring with me the energy of the steadfast women who have come before me. And I am inspired and motivated daily by the youth and the young adults who guide my efforts and vision for futures that work for all of us. So I'm looking forward to this conversation and celebrating this February for all that we have done and all that we are going to do.
Absolutely. And just cheers and celebration for all that we are going to do.
Yeah.
So I want to jump into this because something that I've actually learned from you is that historically, I've always said Black History Month. And recently in conversations with one another, you've been saying like Black Futures Month. And I want to know what sparked that. What is that about? Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I am absolutely a fan of Black History Month and understanding from whence we came. There's a concept called Sankofa. We also often see it on that Indigenous symbol, and it's always a reminder that we have to go back and grab what is useful in order for us to move forward. And so it's important for us to know our history. But in thinking about our history, it's important to recognize that Black people have always been futurists. And this was a concept that I learned from Alicia Garza, that and this is a quote from her: because of the way that the rules have been rigged against our communities, we've been forced to imagine a new future with possibilities for freedom. So when I think about our liberation, when I think about the pathways to freedom in our history, there are people, for instance, Harriet Tubman, who was focused on the fact that she couldn't be anything but free. And she created a pathway to that freedom for herself and others, but that required her to plan and for her to think about the future for herself and for others. It's important for me to know also, as a part of that story, is that she was holed up in an attic for 7 years creating a plan, right? So it's also important for me to know right now that it's going to take some time to get to the future and to the level of freedom that we want to embody and have it for ourselves and for our communities. But that in order for us to realize it, we have to be consistently visioning the future. And as I have been really kind of in this work and continuing to learn and grow and evolve in trafficking prevention and building community work, and also in just collaborating and being in community with people, I noticed that we get on this like problem solving, getting stuck on like, how do we solve this problem of trafficking? How do we fix the system? Instead of dreaming bigger, instead of thinking impossibilities, instead of sitting and thinking about how do we get to our vision beyond the problem? How do we get to the future? If all of our dreams are met right now, what would that look like? And what does it take for us to bridge that gap? And so as we continue in this work, we have to be futurists. When we think about Black girls, we have to be futurists. We've always been futurists, but it's a reminder for me in February to say, we're focused on a moment beyond what I'm seeing on the news right now, what I may be experiencing in my community right now. I am not beholden to the belief that this is our truth and our identity. I agree to be nothing but free.
To be nothing but free. And what is really coming to mind for me right now is that on the backs of Black history creates a better future for everyone, right? So that planning and that freedom was the liberation of all people. And that is something that we should all be in celebration on, because we have Black history. And when we create pathways for Black futures, everyone benefits from that. How profound. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you. So speaking of Black futures, speaking of where we pull our strength from, I have a question for you, Lenore, and it is, who is a Black woman that you know or don't know that has impacted how you view yourself?
That question is so hard, because I have been so fortunate for my village of Black women from across the diaspora that just poured into me. But because my village is made up of Black women across the diaspora, the person that made me seek those type of different cultures and identities within the Black community is my mother. So my mother has been the greatest impact on how I view myself. She has a Pan-African mindset. So I grew up understanding that my solidarity and community to my people didn't just stop with the Haitian culture or at the borders or in communities or borders that were created out of oppression, but in fact that my solidarity and my community is actually global. So my work really centers on calling out the beauties of Blackness, the experiences, the commonalities, and even the differences, and unfortunately sometimes those traumas from the African people on and off the continent, so that we can create better futures for Black communities everywhere. And because of the way my mother has raised me, I understand those commonalities of what was happening in the Congo, to what was also happening in Compton, right? I also understand that it wasn't too much of a difference happening to why Flint didn't have clean water, to why Haiti didn't have clean water. So because of her, I didn't have to be taught my Blackness through the lens of an oppressive view. I knew that from the beginning that my Blackness was beautiful. I knew from the beginning that my Blackness was expansive. I knew from the beginning that my Blackness was global.
Yeah.
And because I had that mindset, that I knew that my liberation didn't belong just to the island, but it belonged to all of us.
Yeah.
And that is centered in the work that we do. We have a survey that we're going to share with everyone, which is like culture as a protective factor. And what we're really trying to draw from that is really the experiences of Black people from everywhere. Black people, you know, our Spanish speaking Black folks, our French speaking Black folks, our Patois speaking Black folks, our Black folks on the continent, our Black folks that are here within the States, our African people, and however we're wanting to reimagine and retitle ourselves, but understanding that we are one people and many nations, and that because we are many nations, that's not designed to, it was designed to divide us, right? Because we understand that a lot of our identities came through trauma and the kidnapping of our people, but because of our resiliency and because of our fight, because of how beautiful and phenomenal of a people we are, we created culture, but that culture shouldn't be designed to separate us, but usually to really unify us, right? And my mother taught me that, right? So I was just a little girl and my mother like, you African girl. And that was like, that's a compliment, you know? And, you know, growing up, you know, I'm a Haitian girl, you know, growing up, I'm an African-American girl. I'm anything as long as you calling me a Black girl. And I'm proud of that. And so my work is centered on those beauties and how do we extract that? How do we talk about those beauties and those commonalities that we see across the diaspora and use them as tools and as weapons towards our liberation and towards our freedom? Again, yeah. So I'm so thankful that she's given me that perspective. I'm so grateful that she's given me that identity where I can celebrate Black cultures everywhere. And I'm thankful for that. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know how I'd view myself. And sometimes it's easy for us to become tribalist. It's easy for us to say, well, this is my set, right? And that is just human instinct. That is something that I don't experience personally. I have a home anywhere I go where my people are gathered and they're deeply melanated. And I understand that. And that's freedom in itself. And that's a freedom that she gave me.
That is so beautiful. So beautiful. And what is bringing up for me is how much we have to learn about each other and the different aspects of us that, like you say, we can use as tools towards liberation. Because there's some things that you really don't know until you visit another place where you see these Black folks speaking a different language, like they look like you, but they sound a little different, but the food tastes a little like yours. And you're like, oh, we are community. We are the same. What can I offer to you? What can I learn from you so that we can keep these practices going? So thank you so much, Lenore, for sharing that with us.
Definitely. All right. So I have another question for you, Joy, because you have over 15 years experience in the field. What do you believe is required from the youth service field to co-create liberatory futures for the young people that we are of service to?
That's a great question, Lenore. And there's a few things that come to mind, but the first is the personal work, really going from theory to practice. I think there was a shift in the youth services field after the murder of George Floyd in 2020. We saw a lot of statements, we saw a lot of good intentions, but as we dig deeper into how we actually go about the work, we've seen a decline in efforts. And I think in order for us to really lean into the transformation that needs to happen in our communities and our organizations, we have to be willing to do the personal work. So we hear the term allyship all the time, but what does it take to actually be an ally? What work do I need to? I've had to look at myself and think about, like, if I'm really about Black girls leading, what is the work that I need to do on myself so that I can be a support to that work and not a barrier to that happening for other people? And I realized that I really had to work on my listening. I had to work on my self-awareness. I had to work on my healing. And that's feedback that, we're hearing from the young people, that they're saying directly to us, thank you for your wish to support us and be here with us. But before you come try to support me in my healing, please do yours first. So how can I be really consistent about my own healing so that I can show up authentically, and be responsive rather than reactive when I'm working with my community? That also involves crucial conversations, right? Like we can't avoid conflict. We can't be about equity and conflict avoidant. So how can I be more strong in being able to withstand some of the difficult conversations and situations that might have to be in order for us to move forward, which also requires boundaries and rest. Like I've been so serious about naps this season. I will schedule a nap midday if I need to, because I want to show up and be present. I want to show up and be, again, responsive rather than reactive. So there's personal work that needs to happen for us to get from theory to practice, in order to be allies in the way that we know we need to. But there's also the community work. So it can't just be self-care, right? It has to be community care. So who in your life and who in your community can you bring along to help co-create these liberatory futures? Who are you sitting next to that would benefit from sharing a title that you're reading, from sharing the thing that has inspired you, from sharing that you are resting, normalizing rest, celebrating something? How can we bring our community along? Which I also have learned means that I have to sharpen my skills around communication across differences. Even within the Black community, even within many of my communities, there are different ways and approaches to many things. And we have to be willing to sit in those differences and communicate across those differences if the goal is for collective advancement. And then the final thing that comes to mind is the systems level work. So when we're thinking about the youth services field in general, like looking at our policies, looking at our practices, and thinking about where we need to shift in our organizations and our local communities in order to support these priorities. Where are we creating barriers to care, barriers to growth and healing and advancement in our policies and practices? So those are some of the things that are coming up for me.
Oh my goodness, that was so much. I'm really looking forward to folks hearing that. And it's just the intentionality and the vulnerability of like checking you first, checking you at that door before you start engaging with someone else. And that's work that we all should be doing.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head when you said vulnerability, because that's
Mhm.
what it is. It's
That's
like,
what it is.
that's what it is, and that's what it's gonna take.
Thank you for that, Joy.
Mhm. So Lenore, I have a really important question for you. Why
Mhm.
is the work that we do centering Black girls so important?
Ah, yes. Yes, that is a very important question. So, first, I just want to say when we center those historically impacted or overrepresented in an issue, we create space for the liberation of all people. So, Black girls, unfortunately, are overrepresented in our systems. So, when systems tailor or begin to tailor themselves to uplift those that are overrepresented, if we just think about it as a triangle, when we begin to center those at that bottom who are overrepresented, naturally everyone else is going to be elevated. But the issue that we find and why we're centering Black girls is because Black girls are not centered in these systems. And the reason why Black girls are not centered in many of the systems is because, let's be real, biases, racism. We understand even just historical views. A lot of times, even when young Black bodies are coming into social services, people have a confusion of what's trauma versus what's culture. So what happens is oftentimes Black girls begin to enter our systems at distress. They're coming into systems seeking services and they're not being taken seriously. They're being told, oh, well, Kanesha has an attitude, or that's just the way she is, or you're not really in pain, right? We even see that with the medical system, right? We see that oftentimes when Black girls, Black bodies are entering spaces of services, even if they're in distress, even if they're upset, that's just beautiful. That's just the culture. And when we say it's just the culture, what we do is we turn a deaf ear to the issue and then we start rejecting to provide services. When Black youth are entering our systems, we also start to find that basic needs are not even being met. And we're talking about basic things simple as shampoo, right? Do you have the right shampoo? Do you have the right hair oils? So social service providers are not taking the additional time to understand and to research the needs of the young people that they're providing services for. And when I'm saying systems, I want to be real, and I'm not saying this to offend nobody, because we understand that a lot of times these systems are designed and they're here for us to be of service. But the reality is, when we talk about the foster care system, we're talking about the juvenile detention systems, we're talking about law enforcement, we're even talking about the school system and mentorship programs. So when we talk about these issues, these could literally be spaces of harm, and they're supposedly designed to be spaces of services. So when I'm talking about they could be spaces of harm, we're talking about juvenile detention centers where young youth are being incarcerated for life-sustaining criminality. I stole some food or I stole some juice because I was hungry, because we have under-resourced communities and we have food deserts, right? Or who gets to call law enforcement and get to go back home safely, right? When we talk about the school system, where Black youth are oftentimes, police are called on them for the same behaviors, not more aggressive behaviors, but the same exact behaviors of their non-Black peers. So if you're talking back, or, you know, maybe you come in and if you're a young person experiencing homelessness or trafficking, you have every right to have an attitude in that moment. But what happens is we're not providing social services. We're not asking young people, let's do this intake process. What do you need? When's the last time you ate? What we do is we criminalize them, we provide them with records, and we say good luck. So again, these same systems, what it looks like is the adultification. And the adultification is just the practice of viewing Black bodies, Black youth specifically, as where you're older. We see that with sexual abuse. We see that in language when we're calling Black girls fast. We see that in behaviors. I've been in spaces where individuals are like, well, she's 12, but she really looks 16. And these are social service providers, right? We also see this with the over incarceration, who gets arrested and who gets services, right? So a lot of the work that we do is really, and it's federally, that there's no such thing as a child prostitute, but ways around that is arresting young people for activities or engagement. So you're breaking curfew, or you may have taken this individual's watch, and they're never asking more questions about the individual, or why is that young person out at 2 a.m.? What's happening? They're just being incarcerated. And the one that we're really starting to see that's funneling into human trafficking is simply just the erasure. So it's not the adultification or the incarceration, but simply not even looking for Black girls. So who gets the Amber Alert and who gets deemed you're a runaway? You're choosing to walk away from circumstances. And we're not going into even further detail, right? I get passionate about this because let's say a young person did run away. Then the questions that we should be asking young people and ourselves is, what are those situations that young people are running away from? And how do we provide better services? And when a young person is not in the home, there should be an Amber Alert for all of our young people, because they're not just our future, but our present day is missing. But when you attach melanin to it, when you attach Blackness to it, then the likelihood of receiving those services decrease. And then when they do engage with law enforcement, it's not for recovery efforts, but it's for incarceration. Black girls also are oftentimes rejected. So when I said rejected, again, coming into social services, and that's rejection when we don't have basic needs. That's rejection when trauma is sitting right in front of us and we're like, that's just the culture. That's just how they're acting. That's all rejection. And that's harm that is being caused by the system. That's not harm that is being caused by exploiters. That is not harm that is being caused by people, predators. That is harm being caused by people who has taken an oath to make our communities a safer space. So Black girls specifically, those that are survivors of abuse, are constantly receiving trauma when they're coming into spaces, when they're supposed to be receiving therapeutic services, when they're supposed to be receiving housing and mentorship programs, right? Who are the mentors? Who are we doing outreach to so that Black girls can have culturally responsible, culturally humble mentors, right? So when I come in and I'm speaking Haitian Creole, it doesn't serve me for you to go get somebody from a community that knows nothing of my culture, and now they're projecting further biases. And then you're wondering why I'm not coming into your shelters. You're wondering why I'm not staying in your programs. You're wondering why I'm connecting more to people who has caused me harm and trauma than I am you, because you too are causing harm and trauma. So when we talk about the centering of Black girls, when we can start understanding all of that and demystifying the idea that trauma is Black culture, because it's not. Black culture is rich, it is beautiful, it's empowering. And when our organizations can start tailoring themselves to see Blackness in that light and addressing the trauma, then we will start finding that we could do that for all persons that come into our shelters, that come into our organizations. But until we can do that personal work that you've talked about, with the biases, with the racism, Okay. And I think another thing about racism, oftentimes when we think of racism, we think about like, you know, these grand organizations that have caused all this historic harm. But racism can just simply be that Black girl sitting right in front of you and you not deeming her life worthy enough for the services that you're giving to somebody else. And that is racism that we're seeing all the time on paper. This is racism we're seeing when young people are coming into our social services. So we center Black girls because we want to create a model to where we can center Black girls so that all persons can be centered, so that we can actually start addressing human trafficking and sex trafficking, not only nationally, but globally. But as long as we still show up in the way that we've showed up historically, we will continue to have the historic, and then we'll continue to have all the issues that we've seen before. And we're not really doing the work. So in solidarity with Black girls, we center those experiences for the liberation of all people.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that, Lenore. I mean, that right there is it. There's two things that come up for me when you say that. The first is that, and this I heard from Dr. Andriette Earl Bozeman a couple weeks ago when she said, you're trying to change the world, but don't want to change yourself. And it all starts with the self, right? And the other piece that's coming up for me is that the thing that needs to happen in these organizations, yes, there could be research, read the books, watch the films, catch up. There's plenty of places where we can learn about one another's culture, but also hire. And hire Black women, fund organizations and programs led by Black women, because who else is going to know what those basic needs are?
Exactly.
So do yourselves a favor and make the work a little easier, and expand the leadership of your organizations, of your initiatives to include diverse perspectives. And that right there is a good 25% of the work, right? Thank you so much, Lenore, for that. Thank you.
My heart is just so full from this conversation that we are having. And I have one more question before we wrap our conversation today up for Black Futures Month. And the question to you, Joy, is what do you want your legacy and impact to be?
So many things. I think the first is that I think it will be that it's not easy, but it's worth it. You know, that it's okay to challenge, and it's okay to show up fully and authentically and to work towards a solution together. And I'm ain't nobody looking for it to be easy. That the misconception that the way forward should be easy, I think has gotten us in trouble in a lot of ways. And the hard thing is to stay the same. That's the hard thing. And the easy thing is to be free. So let's adjust accordingly. I would also love for my impact to be pathways to leadership for those most closest to the issue. For Black girls specifically, because Black girls and Black women are disproportionately impacted in so many ways in terms of health disparities in income, education, all of the things. But then also for that to be true for our sister communities, that intersectional people, Indigenous people, people who have experienced incarceration, all of us are centered in the work that impacts us the most, that we're centered in our liberation. I also feel really strongly and would like for my legacy to be sustainable environments for people of color in these organizations, in these systems, in this work, so long as we have them. That it's not just about having Black people or brown people or intersectional folks at an organization, but it's about having spaces where people see themselves, where they feel comfortable, where they can thrive, and where they can lead, and they are a part of the decision-making process. I would like to also be seen as a space for growth, a soft space where people can feel comfortable having conversations and not having to have all the answers, but being willing to be in that discourse, being okay to be vulnerable. I would love for that to be something that I leave behind. And also, and you mentioned our survey cultures as a protective factor. I would love for us to lean into that more, to get into the diverse identities, especially around Blackness, the different ways that communities have thrived, and the knowledge that we can use, that technology of our ancestors, so that we can really be about that Sankofa principle of reaching back so that we can move forward. How about you, Lenore? What do you want your legacy and impact to be?
Oh my gosh, those are all beautiful. Those same. That was beautiful. I would say first, an impact that I'm so intentional about is that Black bodies, Black folks, Black women in this work, I would love to leave a legacy where we leave pathways to still experience joy in all that we do, because it's hard, right? It's hard where it's your identity that is on the stage, that is constantly being crucified, that is constantly being forgotten, that is constantly being mishandled. And then you show up into the work and you see the future of youth and young people, and they look just like you. And even still in those systems, having to navigate all of the isms in those spaces, that a lot of times it could strip us of joy. And I want, when we all get to old age, that even the work that we did, in spite of the work that we did, that we still were a joyful people. We still laughed along the way. We still sang songs throughout. We still built community. We still fellowshipped. We still held each other close and tight. And that, I mean, and you know, it could be a difficult thing, right? Like, how do you find peace and joy in the midst of a war? But because we're so revolutionary and because we're so forward thinking, that I think that I know that Black people can create that reality for ourselves and also create that reality for our allies. And that reality is us being able to also witness and experience the fruits of the labor that we're doing. Secondly, I want to leave a legacy where Black girls that are usually not centered don't just have a seat at the table, but are running the entire boardroom. And when I say this, during Black Futures Month, we've seen some amazing historical things happen, right? We've seen, I believe Beyonce became the most award-winning Grammy artist, and we've seen LeBron was shooting those baskets, and everybody celebrated. They celebrated their existence, they celebrated their labor, they celebrated their dedication and their work, and it was very deserving. But also in that, I feel like a lot of times the world has an obsession with only celebrating Blackness, when the brilliance and the excellence is usually in those type of platforms, right? What does it look like when we celebrate that Black girl who's been missing for some years and she comes home? Or we find her, right? What does it look like for us to celebrate that Black girl who, may have been overly incarcerated over and over again, and now is running a boardroom? What does it look like for us to celebrate Black girls who have been trafficked, and now they're creating pathways for us to have better communities? And better yet, just what does it look like for us to celebrate Black girls in general without us having to do any labor or anything for anybody? Especially when we talk about survivors of trafficking, a lot of times, like all the time, they're surviving a system that was designed to destroy them, in a world that was designed for their absence, and still show up, right? Still show up, still have holding on parts to their humanity, still showing up with joy, still showing up with resilience, still showing up with the audacity to live, still showing up with as mothers, daughters, and friends in spite of it all. And I want to live and leave a legacy of where that's who we also celebrate, right? I oftentimes when we talk about racism and when we talk about these systems and how the system is racist, we ignore how that historical context, because a lot of times, impact the lives of these young Black girls. And we say that, like, racism is like a cancer in America or the world. In reality, racism is like the right hand to the world, right? That is constantly abusing Black identities. And if we can continue to center those with that lived experience, then they have been confronted face to face with the issue that we need to dismantle to say that we have a better world, to say that we have a better nation. So when we begin to center and leave a legacy, when these Black girls are at the center of our tables, again, selfishly, we all benefit. So the legacy I want to leave back is where we celebrate Black identities, because Black identities are just here. You know, like Black Futures Month shows and highlights all the incredible things that we've done for the benefit of the world, but just our existence, right? If just how we show up and just how we love and just how we build community is worthy of celebration alone, we come into this world whole and perfect and worthy. So I want to leave a legacy of where we understand that. And when I say we, I mean the world, right? Of centering those Black girls, looking for those Black girls, honoring the lives of those Black girls, and in the most devastating cases, mourning those Black girls, but leaving a legacy of where we're no longer normalizing the practices of the erasure of Black identity, but living in existence where we can celebrate the very identities that has allowed us all to get this far in life. That is the impact I would like to leave, that understanding, that fight, that will.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was our conversation that we had for Black Futures Month, Black History, Black Herstory. We just want to thank you all for just being in community with us today. And just look forward to future conversations. And again, we hope that you all are in celebration. We hope that you all are finding joy. We hope that you all are resting. We hope that you all are dismantling systems, and just creating a better, brighter future for tomorrow for all of us. At the end of this video or in this post, you will find our Culture as a Protective Factor survey. And this survey was designed for Black women in mind. So if you are a Black identifying woman, across the diaspora, we would love for you to fill out the survey and tell us how your culture has been your protective factor. And we are talking Black from across the globe, okay? So we're saying continental, non-continental, those that love the salsa, those that love the compa, those that are R&B, those are Afro beats. We talking Black, as long as you identify and that you celebrate your Blackness. We want to hear how you do that. And what we're going to do is in the future, we want to have further conversations and release how culture has been a protective factor throughout the entire diaspora. So thank you all for being here with us today. Be well. And just remember, every day is Black History and Black Futures Day.
That's right.